The next step of the laser technique is acknowledge. And this is the step that I think is most often missed, and also is the step where if a conversation seems to be going off the rails, it's usually because the person needs more acknowledgement. Here's how it works. So you allow the person to get through their story. Maybe you've been doing a great job of active listening. You're watching your body language, you're asking questions, letting them know that it's okay to keep talking. And then they get to the end and you've been kind of holding inside of yourself all the things you really, really want to say. So they finish talking and you jump in with, I know exactly what you need to do, or I know the person you need to call, or I have this great book that you should read. All of that might be phenomenal information, but not yet. Like, hold off just a second. Before you get to all the things you want to share with them, you first have to let them know that you heard them. You have to acknowledge what they've shared. Acknowledgement can be really short. It doesn't have to be a big, long statement, just something like, thanks for letting me know, or I'm really sorry for everything you've been going through, is enough. It really is. All you're trying to do is show them that you heard them. Um, what you want to avoid are responses that either deny or distract from what they've said. So a denial is something like, it's all going to work out for the best. Distraction is more like, you really need to be focused on your kids right now. I think of it almost as a physical space. Like right now, they are in a difficult spot. They are dealing with something really hard and they're struggling. Um, what they really need is for us to be willing to sit there with them in that difficult place. But often our instinct is to either pretend they're not in that space, like we're just going to ignore the place that you are, or distract them from it, like we're just going to try to go around the difficult spot. But what they really need is our willingness to sit there with them because it can be kind of lonely being in that difficult place that they are. Have you ever heard that expression, holding space for somebody? That's really what this is about, is are you willing to just hold this space, to sit with them in this difficult place that they are and show them that they're not alone? Here on this next slide, I'm going to share with you a few statements that people often make that are more in the vein of deny and distract, and then some that might be more helpful to say. So I'll just go through those one by one. The one expression that almost everybody who is struggling seems to really dislike is, I know how you feel. Have you ever heard that before? It's problematic for a few reasons. I think I should say, I think people use that phrase because they are trying to normalize what the person is going through. Like it's not bad that you are feeling the way you are. There's nothing wrong with you. I understand, I think is what people are trying to say. But it often kind of hits the wrong note. And I think the reason for that is, first off, we don't really know how they feel, even if we have gone through something very, very similar. Like, even if my brother had the same kind of cancer at the same age, my experience of that would be different than yours. So, saying, I know how you feel, you don't really know how they feel. The other thing about it is it shuts down the conversation. I know how you feel is saying, you don't have to tell me, I already know. So it's not as helpful, I think, as we want it to be. So it's one that we should try to avoid if we can. Another one is everything happens for a reason. This is one I think for a lot of people. It might even be part of their faith background that you believe that everything happens for a reason, that there is a larger plan, and that the challenges that we are given is part of that larger plan. That is completely a legitimate belief for you to have, and I don't ever want to try to talk you out of it, but just understand that for the person where they are right now, it can be a difficult thing to hear. Like, I can tell you for myself that I have been through some difficult life experiences, and I know that I would not be where I am talking to you right now about these topics if I hadn't been through, hadn't gone through those experiences. But if you tried to tell me at that moment when I was going through something really hard, oh, this, you're going to see one day that this was for a reason. I would have wanted to kick you, right? Like it's really hard when you're in the midst of it to hear that message. So even if you believe that that is the case, I would hold off on saying it to the person while they're in that difficult place. Another one, this is kind of more in the vein of distraction, is you need to put this behind you. Um, oh, focus on the future, or, let's think about what is needed from you. Like, oh, you really need to be taking better care of yourself right now. You've gotta make sure that you're getting enough sleep, or are you taking care of your kids right now? All of those are really distraction comments. What the person is looking for is, did you hear me? Did you hear that I'm in a difficult spot right now? Obviously, it's important that they take care of their kids. Obviously, we want them to make sure that they're getting enough sleep. But before we go through any of that, we just need to let them know that we heard where they are. We just have to acknowledge that right now this is kind of a difficult spot. Um, a final one is, it'll all work out. In a similar vein to the everything happens for a reason, you might believe that it will all work out, and it probably will, but it might not. I mean, there are things that happen in people's lives that change their lives forever. And we don't necessarily know what is going to happen for this person in the future. So it can seem minimizing to people who are going through a really difficult time. Um, Another one in this vein is the look on the bright side kinds of comments. Those are often distraction comments. Um, well, at least he went quickly, or at least you got a chance to say goodbye. Um, I remember hearing from one woman who, I think she had like a cancer diagnosis, something really, really scary. And they said, oh, well, at least you've got really good insurance. And of course, obviously, the situation could always be worse, but that's not necessarily what the person needs to hear right now. You're not actually going to cheer them up by saying, "Oh, like it could be so much worse." What they want instead is just for your willingness to acknowledge where they are, that this is kind of a hard place. Your willingness to stay present, to hold this space with them. So, what are some things that are more helpful to say? Things like, "Thank you for sharing that." People often feel worried that they're going to burden us by sharing what it is that they're going through. And when we say thank you, we show them that it's not a burden, it's okay, and I'm grateful that you opened up to me. I'm so sorry. There will be a quick note later in the course on apologies. We do want to be careful with apologies and make sure that we're being clear about what kind of apology we're offering. We don't want to create the impression that we're apologizing for our behavior, when what we're really apologizing for, what we mean by I'm sorry, is I'm sorry you're going through this. So it can be helpful to say all of that. I'm so sorry you're going through so much. I'm so sorry this is such a difficult time. That sounds awful or scary or upsetting or whatever it sincerely sounds to you, I think is a nice way of acknowledging that this person is going through something difficult. You're doing a great job is another one that I use quite a lot. I have found that everybody who's going through a difficult time thinks they're doing it wrong. They think they should be sadder, or they should be more functional. It's either like, oh, I can't even function right now. I can't even go to work, or I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't even cry. Whatever it is, like, they are getting through this the best they can, and it can be really helpful for them to hear that. And similarly, what you're feeling is normal. People often feel like they're doing it wrong. So just a little bit of normalizing, acknowledging, like, hey, the way that you're feeling is completely normal. I can understand why you might feel that way, can be really helpful in normalizing.